Midrash on the Pasuk Vayikra Moshe, Hashem is communicating here specifically the laws which pertain to korbanos sacrifices, but the whole Torah was communicated to Moshe. Omer Avasi, Ger shekibul ol kol haTorah kulu chutz midavar echad, a convert which accepts upon himself the whole Torah except for one law, ein mekabel noso. He's rejected, doesn't qualify as a convert. V'lo od el afilu dikduk echad min haTorah, divri sofrim, one small detail, or even a rabbinic interpretation. Omer Rav Yehuda bar Sholom, atomotzi arboim u'shmona pomim hizer kodesh baruch hu b'Torah lager. We find how a person has to be sensitive and careful regarding how one treats a convert. It's mentioned 48 times in the Torah. Uchenegdon hizer al avodah zorah, and we find 48 times the Torah forewarns us regarding the prohibition of idolatry. Omer kodesh baruch hu, dayo sheniach avodah zorah bo etzlechem. It's sufficient that he abandoned pagan worship, idolatry, and he came to be part of you. Ani masir chosh te'aveu. I forewarn you, I command you, you must love him. Sheni oavo, because as I love him, you must love him. Because he abandoned idolatry. Shenemar, v'oiv ger losislo lechem v'simlo. You should love the convert to give him bread and a garment. But it's interesting. Regarding being sensitive to the needs of a ger, of a convert, it's mentioned 48 times. Idolatry, the prohibition, is mentioned 48 times in various contexts. 48 times. We find, the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, the Memches Devorim HaTorah Niknes, the 48 ways to acquire Torah, also 48. There's always the counterbalance. The ultimate, we find that the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the men of the High Assembly, at the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash, they fasted and they prayed to destroy the evil inclination of idolatry. It was so overwhelming, it was more consuming than the sexual drive. And we find that after they fasted and they prayed, a line of fire exited from the Kodesh Kadoshim, from the Holy of Holies. It's interesting, from the Holy of Holies. That's where it should emanate from, the holiest location, the Mokum of the Shekhinah. But that's where the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of idolatry, that's where it exited from. And they captured it, and they put it into a lead cylinder, and they disposed of it. And this is why, during Bayis Sheni, during the Second Temple period, that wasn't the issue any longer. The issue was a question of heretical belief. The Baitusim and the Tzdukim, the Sadducees, they rejected the authenticity of the oral law. That was the Bayis Sheni, the issue. But again, we find that there's a counterbalance. The location, the holiest location, which everything emanates from there, from that same location to counter it, we find that the evil inclination for idolatry emanates from the same location. Because every positive force has a negative force. There has to be. Yaakov has an Esav. And they were born simultaneously into existence. Each one set off the other. That was the balance. Now, what is the counterforce to idolatry? The ultimate counterforce? I've created the evil inclination, and I created for it specifically the antidote is Torah. That disassembles, that incapacitates it. That gives us the ability to take control of our lives, the Torah itself. We have 48 times idolatry is mentioned. The convert, to be sensitive to his needs, that he abandoned. Idolatry, 48 times. But yet, for us, not to be influenced, not to be subject, what is our defense? 40 Memches Devorim HaTorah Niknes, man. The 48 ways for us to acquire Torah. So again, we find the numbers 48. There's Norach Chaim HaKodesh in Parshas Kisisa. It says, Lasos is HaShabbos. Lasos, you do the Shabbos. What is the doing? There's no doing. We have Zocha v'Shomer. We have the observance of the Shabbos is the positive commandment. Shomer is refrain. So refrain is being passive not being active. What's the lasus of Shabbos? So it says something interesting. If a person, the Gemara tells us in Chulin, that if a person is an apostate in regard to one mitzvah, and it's not out of spite, out of defiance, he's considered delinquent in that particular area. What about if a person is an idolater? He's considered mu'min l'chol Torah kula. He's considered as if he rejected Torah's entirety. He may, even though he may wear tefillin and study Torah, but if he's a pagan, his behavior is purely cultural, has nothing to do with God. What about a person who's mechal Shabbos? A person who violates the Shabbos, although he's violating one mitzvah of the Torah, and he's an apostate as if he rejected Torah's entirety. Why? Because the Jew must observe the Shabbos because we're a testament to the world that God's the creator. If a person does creative activity on Shabbos deliberately, what does that say? It says God being a creator or not a creator is totally irrelevant. But the basis for our belief that God is the one who dictates every aspect of his existence because he's the creator. So rejecting that is the equivalent of rejecting the Torah's entirety. So we find, so when you observe the Shabbos, if violating Shabbos is you rejecting the Torah's entirety, so observing the Shabbos, it's like as if you're fulfilling every mitzvah in the Torah. So this is what we explain, that's lasus of Shabbos. By observing the Shabbos, although you're acting in a passive context, but acknowledging that, that means it's the equivalent. So he says if a person was a violator, or even a pagan, it says, Shom Shabbos Kilchoso, a person who observes Shabbos properly, even if he has idolatry on his record as a delinquency, as a failing, that's atoned for. Why? Because that's lasus as a Shabbos. Because Torah itself, observing Shabbos is the positive side, and that's the correction for all the failings. That's the lasos. The ger, initially he was a pagan. He was an idolater. 48 times it's mentioned. But it's Avos Hager, to be sensitive to needs, also 48 times. He came to the recognition of truth. But the ultimate recognition of truth, when do you come to that level? That's Memches Dvorim, Memches Dvorim Shator Nichspem. There are 48 ways to acquire Torah, because that's the ultimate. And when you do that, that touches upon every negative aspect, and that makes the full correction.